All right. Good morning, everyone. It's another edition of In the Charts with the guys at Han Ventures. We got Diogo, Chris, and Breck here today. Um, I think we've got a good lineup. I will be the first one to kick us off. Let me see if
Hopefully
I
with
can
a
pull it up.
chart and not some kind of
Yes, I
weird
actually have a
table.
chart to. I
Ha
actually have a
we
chart
did it.
today, not like in the three charts or not in the graphs or in the tables. I've got like
Love
I've
it.
actually, you know, I've understood the assignment today. Um, so there's been a lot of news, probably in the last 6 months, about prediction markets, and I think it's actually hit a fever pitch now that the NFL and college football seasons have started, with the majority of volume on prediction markets being sports betting. And so I've been doing a little bit of research in this market, and I found this chart, which I think is pretty striking. So in the United States, sports betting was basically not allowed up until 2018. There was a little bit of sports betting, and that's mostly through like horse betting. And as someone who's from Kentucky, like, if you look at like charts of people downloading sports betting apps, it's like there's a big spike when the Kentucky Derby happens, and then there's like no betting for a long time, and then the Kentucky Derby happens. And then in 2018, basically sports betting was opened up to the states, and from then on, state by state, there's been more legal sports betting allowed. And so now we're at a point where the market has grown from like sub a billion to $14 billion in revenue across the big companies in just 6 years. So this is a really big market. And honestly, it's a market that I think I've undervalued for the most part. Like when I saw Polymarket and Kalshi are having 85% of their volume in sports betting, it's almost like my instinct is to eye roll. um, but if you put this to numbers, Coinbase is the company that's probably the largest US based crypto company, valued at $100 billion market cap. And in 2024, they did $6 billion of revenue. So this is a market that is enough size for two and a half Coinbases. It's really big. And it's also probably even bigger because sports betting is only allowed in 30 states today. And two of the states where it's not allowed is California and Texas, which are two of the biggest states in the US with the biggest economies. So I think this number, could actually be a lot bigger. And the news, and I think part of the reason why sports betting has been a lot of the volume is because Kalshi and Polymarket are a regulatory arbitrage where you can provide sports betting to uh, all the 50 states. So they're regulated by the CFTC, which preempts state law, which I think currently is actually being debated in the appellate courts. But it basically allows people in California and Texas to do legal sports betting. Um, and so that's why there's been this market pull. I kind of just wanted to pull this up to talk about this because I think we're seeing in real time um, crypto enabled regulated sports betting exchanges like fully disrupt the US betting market in the States, and also disrupt the business model of the FanDuels and DraftKings of the world to create more fair exchanges. And they're doing it on crypto rails. And that's like a pretty big deal. Um, you know, we've talked about this a little bit internally, but it feels to me like what happened with stablecoins and fintech is kind of happening with markets, where crypto is actually being chosen as the technology of choice for these large, new, interesting, like internet native markets. And, who knows how big sports betting will get, in the long term. But the news, I think, for us as crypto investors is like crypto is the rail that people are choosing for these like new disruptive exchanges. And I think that's awesome. So I want to open up to you guys. We could talk about sports, we can talk about the crypto components of it. But there's a
Let's
lot of
not talk
interesting
about
stuff here.
sports. I think it's interesting the parallel. I think we're going to have way more examples of crypto's arbitrage creates a market that gets so big that then gets regulated as is and gets allowed as is. Stable coins is that. This self-custodial element of crypto, I think, are going to bring this exact same pattern to definitely sports betting, but to lots of different markets. I think it's kind of a cool, underwritable trend is what is allowed with self-custody that can get big enough to then, have some level of oversight at the federal level that gets enshrined in law. And then after Genius Act, these things are just legal now, bypassing like just, the fierce competition and using the technology to their advantage. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to think about was It's fun to see some social and consumer use cases start to grab onto crypto infrastructure. You asked a little bit. I mean, obviously, the numbers here speak for itself. But Breck, you were asking, how large is this market? I mean, betting on some form of sports almost feels like a biological thing for humans. It's like there's literally a coliseum in Rome, right? That
Totally.
was basically sports betting with like literal humans fighting each other. I mean, it's like the history behind this is so deep. I think it's like a very innate desire to do it. Um, it feels like if the regulations open up and you actually have a global market for something like this, it could be absolutely massive. Um, the that is actually the interesting thing for me is that right now when we think about sports betting here in the US, we tend to think about US sports, right? We tend to think about football, both NFL, college, etc. But imagine having a global market for this for something like soccer, which is like a real global sport, instead of starting to have these regional markets. And I think that's when it starts to get really interesting, especially when you lob in stable coins and the ability to do global settlement and clearing and payments. And I think that will be really interesting. Obviously, the regulations in each of these geos is going to look different. And so it's not as simple as it sounds. But I think this chart is also an underrepresentation of what the market actually looks like because this is just US focused.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we're moving into a place where like regulated markets are local and they're constrained. A lot of the regulated markets in the US like can't do 24/7 clearing because they have to be able to fulfill liquidations and stuff over the weekend. So they're like beholden to the hours that the banks are literally open. With stable coins, you can go from like 9 to 5 markets to 12, 7 days a week markets, 24/7. And then you can also take a step further and go from local to global. So I completely agree. It feels like this is a trend where, if you're building a new marketplace or exchange, more and more we're going to start to see crypto rails, probably first with stable coins, and then like the actual settlement or clearinghouse be on crypto, which I think is super exciting.
Yeah, I don't know. Before
Um,
we move on, I just want to say that I find the sports betting market unsavory, and the only thing that excites me about this is that it brings liquidity and uses and people to what I didn't consider are kind of like the more noble actual. If all we get is sports betting out of these things, then I think we failed as a community and we failed as a space. The things that I'm interested in are can we get fire insurance in California? Can we get hurricane insurance in Florida? Because people's natural desire and tendency to bet gets drawn to something that is actually useful for society. Those are the things that actually want as outcomes. This feels just, yeah, whatever. I actually would be fine if this continued to be illegal, personally. And sports betting was not allowed.
well, I think
Have some
what's
fun, Diogo.
yeah,
Yeah, so many ways to have fun without negative EV.
well, I think okay, so this is important though. So like part of the thing that I think is being disrupted away is like, so you're right, like DraftKings and FanDuel have these like awful extractive like business models where they take 10% no matter what at a minimum. And then if you make money on the exchange, they just kick you off. So there's like quite literally no way to make money in sports betting. There, like if you do, you're just like no longer allowed to participate. It's like going to a casino and like if you're counting cards, if you're making money, you're cheating, right? Like that's screwed up. And so what a lot of these prediction markets stand for is like, let's make a fair exchange. Like let's make what exists on NYSE and NASDAQ, where there's like fair market participation. There's like, uh, you know, there's a bid ask spread, and like let's have it so that you compete away the margin of these incumbents. And I think that that's actually a very positive thing. Like Chris said, it's in people's nature to bet on these things. Like that's not going to go away. We can't change the way that people work, but if we can create a like more global fair exchange layer, like I think that's actually a very valuable thing, and something that like is definitely a place that we should be rooting for, not like propping up the like DraftKings and FanDuels of the world. So I'll just say that, but I'll hand it over to our next chart.
I've got a very simple chart for us today. The title is There Are Now More ETFs Than Stocks. And so the black line here is the number of US listed companies from 2010 to 2025. And you can see that there's some ups and downs, but basically it's been flat over the last 15 years. The yellow line here is the number of US listed ETFs. And you can see that it's grown by more than 4x over the last 15 years. And now it's actually greater than the number of US listed companies. And I think this is really interesting to think about. There's so many probably reasons for why this is true. But in the past, I think we've discussed how investing is becoming more passive. That's one of the things. Companies are staying private for longer. It might be another one of the things. ETFs, I think, give you two advantages. One is that it might give you exposure to an asset or a theme that otherwise you might, find challenging to get exposure to. So, for example, crypto is one of those where, instead of going and opening an account at a crypto exchange, you can just go buy the ETF to get the exposure. The other benefit is that you can start to create portfolios or baskets of things that represent the theme rather than having to go into an individual stock. So it's a more kind of aggregated or thematic product than an individual stock. So I wanted to leave this up here. I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I'm curious what you guys think.
Forgive me if I'm wrong, but don't ETFs just represent like the combinatorial logic of combining a bunch of different underlying stocks or baskets of assets? So like these are still giving you exposure to the US listed companies that are like, maintaining
Correct.
steady, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The permutation of like all different sorts of stocks could result, it's the 4,000 factorial or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. One of the things that I think Vlad from Robinhood was on the All-In Summit, and one of the things he talked about was how he was actually worried. He was trying to tokenize private stocks like OpenAI, etc., and he received a lot of criticism for it. But one of the things that he cited as his motivation, which I thought was really interesting, was that, look, these companies are becoming more and more impactful to our societies. Like, that is undoubtedly true. In the case of some of what AI is doing, it's going to replace jobs. And his view was that you will get impacted on a societal level, but if you don't have the ability to participate in the upside of that, which there is going to be plenty of, then aren't you just exposed to potentially the downside of that? And I was thinking about that in the context of companies staying private longer and, the flat lie that you see here in terms of US listed, publicly US listed companies. And I thought that was a really interesting framing that I hadn't really thought about before.
You know what's the most harebrained kind of comment that I have about this chart is that mathematically, the number of combinations of things is strictly superior to the number of things. And so naturally, this is just the way that the things are going to go. And the way the cookie crumbles, because you're going to combine these things however way you want. So you're going to have more combinations of things and things. I think the thing that is surprising to me is why the hell are the number of listed companies not going up, guys?
Exactly.
Come on, let's
Right.
go.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's to stay private longer is one big thing. I think there is also more the successful companies are getting bigger and bigger. So like in 2010, if you would have said, oh, there are multiple companies that are like hovering in the $3 trillion market cap range, you would say, wow, like what happened? But that is true today. Tech creates, network effects, economies of scale businesses that tend to get only better with scale in a lot of ways. I don't know if this trend will reverse. And then, with companies staying private longer, especially the tech companies, I think that's true. And I also don't know, I would actually be really curious to know what percentage of IPOs are non-tech. I actually don't know. Like, obviously we live in our own bubble where like every startup is a tech company. But I'd be curious, like what percentage of, the IPOs that are represented by, these large investment banks are non-tech companies or something that feels like non-tech.
I bet this maps pretty closely to the inflation of the venture capital industry. So like if the time horizon from seed to IPO is like around 10 years. You can kind of see that little like flip upwards is like 2020-ish. And it's just been down since. Like, I wonder if this just like coincides with like all of the companies that you would have wanted to invest in out of Silicon Valley in the 2010s are just like not going public right now. And you know, VCs like us, or you know, our larger peers call it, because we're not doing this, are plowing, you know, hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars into things that, and then there's no incentive to go public.
Yeah.
So
There are
Yeah, my final thought
multiple.
here is, what is the churn like? This indicates to me that the churn for public companies is much larger than I thought.
Oh, yeah, like they're becoming delisted because they're like pink sheets companies now. Yeah,
That's right. It has to be, right? Because otherwise,
there will
this
be a
will
lot
just
of
be
those.
like a cumulative. So it has to be a lot of them. Just kind of an underreported portion of this. Guess nobody cares about the failures.
yeah, well, you can see in COVID they just died. Like there are companies that just died during COVID.
Yeah. It's actually quite
Makes
a few.
sense.
It's like
Yeah.
800.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think this is one to watch. I mean, bring this back to crypto. As we think about bringing more access to, or allowing retail users to have earlier access to things, I think crypto can really help with that.
Yeah, it would be
It just
really
lowers
fun
the
to
barrier
chart of
significantly.
like US listed companies on normal exchanges and then US listed companies on chain. And then you kind of like see the cumulative like version of that. Yeah, for sure.
If you fast
That would
forward
be
10
really
years
fun.
from now, that's probably going to be a very well chart.
Yeah, that would be a great one. Well, if you're a entrepreneur building on this, you should reach out to us. We're definitely interested in funding this vision of the world. Awesome. I will take it over. What I brought you guys is also an update from a prior discussion that we have had in the past. What I'm bringing you is a chart, and the title is Headcount Over Time by Age Group of Software Developers, and it's normalized. So on the x-axis, you have date, and then you have a bunch of squiggly lines, and the squiggly lines essentially divide the software engineers by early career 1, early career 2, so 22 to 25, 26 to 30, then developing 31 to 34 years old, mid-career 1, mid-career 2, 35 to 40, 41 to 49, and then senior 50 plus. And what you see is that the headcount over time post ChatGPT, and it's literally like the correlation is kind of insane. In fact, to the point where I thought this chart may be fake because this is just too clean to be true. But what's happening is that ChatGPT gets launched and the LLMs start becoming really good at code, and you have early career 1 be completely destroyed in terms of headcount. No one is hiring junior software engineers that are 22 to 25 years old. The next second most affected one is early career 2, 26 to 30 years old. These two are totally being destroyed, where there's a lot less headcount over time being added. And funny enough, the ones that are holding are the 4 other categories: developing, mid-career 2, 1, 2, and then senior. But I think what you can expect over time is that these will also each individually drop off, where the next one to go is developing, and then the next one to go is mid-career, and then the only people that are going to stay around are probably going to be, you know, the Linux beards with like 41 to 49 that can like coordinate a zillion bots simultaneously and keep all these things in their minds. And then finally they turn into senior and they die, and this all goes down into the right together.
It is a crazy chart to actually just visualize because it's not even up for debate. These lines are just so clearly delineated. One weird question that I have from this is that, do you think this makes companies more durable, or do you think it makes companies more ephemeral?
Well, I think it makes companies more ephemeral on net. And I think there will be more companies. So more companies will be created, partly because people are going to be out of jobs, and so they're going to have to do something with their time. And so the natural thing is for companies to be created. Number 2, you're going to need less people, and so I think you're going to be able to draw tighter bounds around what a company is and provides and consume services from other companies, and that will naturally kind of like also draw forces inward. At least this is a feeling that I have. I don't know if I can argue. I mean, I can argue the opposite.
That was my first instinct, Diogo. But you know, there's the saying like ideas are. Well, actually, I don't even know what the saying is. But the general idea is that, you know, ideas are not the hard part. Execution is the hard part. And if you think about it, execution is obviously a lot of coordination, but it's actually the work itself too. The idea of a 10x engineer exists. And when you have somebody that is that talented and special, it creates a different escape velocity for the company. And so if you take that to its logical extreme, and now everybody is using like Claude Code, doesn't execution actually get fairly homogenized? Or at least like the creation aspect is it's harder to differentiate when everybody's using the same thing. And so
Isn't just that the floor is higher, that there's no differentiation on like having a nice UI for iOS or for front end because everybody
uh,
can get to it very fast. But really
maybe,
like
I mean, but the flip example would be like, we talk about how, a stable coin based neobank is so easy to create now because the infrastructure underneath it is so good actually. And then as we evaluate them as a firm, we are trying to look for points of differentiation because where are the moats, right? And the moats come at scale. And so you could argue like actually those are more durable.
Have you guys seen the report that's like perceived uh, advantages of using like an AI copilot versus like the actual like efficiency increases of using these copilots? It's like people think they're 30% better, but they're actually 30% worse, which I think is kind of a funny like context to provide to this chart. But undoubtedly, like we're
So
going to
wait,
be
if
to a
you're
place.
correct in playing that forward, what you're saying is that that little spike over there it's about to rebound from the lows and we're going to start
Well,
hiring our careers again.
I'm not going
If
to
you're
bet against
correct,
like
then we're going to
I'm not
like recognize that we need more headcount.
I'm not going to bet against the efficacy of these coding tools. Like, I think we're just at like a weird moment where like our expectations are just like a little in advance of like the reality. But like, we're definitely moving to a place where a lot of this stuff is just going to be better run by agents than people. My thinking here is like, you take the 99-1 principle of like contribution on the internet. Like, the 1% does the vast majority of things, and like the 1% of people, I don't know what age group they fall in here, but the 1% of developers are just that much better. So maybe that moves to like the 0.1%. And I think the 90% of people that hide in like their contributions probably just like get wiped out, and they're forced to move into a like higher agency role where they can't just like be asleep at the wheel, and they have to become, they have to find the thing that they have edge in. And then if they can find that, then they can use all of the execution tools or the coding agents to actually like, you know, action on those things. But I think it
But
just
on
wipes
the
out
Chris's
the
question, do we
90%.
get more? Are companies more defensible? Are companies bigger? Do we have more companies?
I mean, we'll definitely have more companies. Like that
I
is,
agree with
I
that.
think we'll all agree with that. I mean,
Yes. More slop.
the thing that I'm trying to flush this out. I'm obviously reacting to this. This is all live, folks. We do not know. Um, but one thought that I have is that like, what is the benefit of a 10x engineer is that you are compressing time, right? It's like this person doesn't need to write this thing 10 times in order to get to the right answer. This person is thinking 10 steps ahead and is architecting it for scale and efficiency and is still able to write the thing fast. And if you
That's
think
right.
about a startup, what you're fighting against is execution versus time, right? It's like, how
Right.
quickly can I achieve the thing in the runway that I have available to me? And what a lot of uh, AI is a lot of labor compression. And so like that distinction, I think, goes away a little bit more. Like that gets more standardized. It's not as steep of a spread or as big of a spread. Like the spread will exist, obviously. Like you can use it better, et cetera. You have better ideas to start with, et cetera. But like the execution spread should compress.
Well, yeah, but I think part of the time compression is like pruning the tree of possibilities. Like, sure, there are engineers that just like can stay up longer and like can drink more energy drinks and just like write faster code. But I think the truly best people are like less is more people. They're like, I know not even to like traverse that graph of the tree because it's going to lead me to a dead end. And it's like almost more like instinctual or like taste based than just like pure horsepower is like would be
Right.
kind of my rebuttal. And I think
But
that
why
that's
can't
where it
Claude Code make
gets.
that for you? Like can't they see into the future and just say, hey, this is a dead path?
I mean, if we're like, I think in the future, sure, but like right now, we're talking about a world where most people are actually less productive when they rely on cloud code than they are more productive. If you believe the chart that or not chart, but like the study that like was quoted. So
But in
I
a
don't.
hypothetical world where it actually goes forward, one of the things, Chris, is like, look, if everybody is 10 times faster, then we're still all relative basis. We have the same type of competition. I don't think
Yeah,
there's I mean, unless it's like literally like this AI is true AGI or super intelligence and just like
sure.
builds a better concept, better app, better product, better direction, better go to market, better everything than I do, then we just all shifted up by a relative, on the relative basis, we're the same. On the absolute basis, we're 10 times.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely still a relative spread. I think the spread just compresses, right? It's no longer.
Well, assuming
Uh,
that the distribution, which is impossible in
it's
physics, but assuming that the distribution all came at the same time, there would be no compression
well,
of
okay.
execution.
Maybe an
It will be
analogy
actually
here would
like
be like,
separation. Like it's going to get worse before it gets better. Like some people are going to
well,
adopt AI and going to get to like AI efficiency much faster
well,
than the large majority of the laggards. So these people are going to stay behind. These people are going to execute faster and faster.
I kind of think about it like, if we need to go from point A to point B without any technology, there are people that run faster than others, and that spread will be very, very wide. We invented bicycles, and that spread compresses, and then we invented
Yeah,
cars, and that spread compresses further. And sure, they're going to be better drivers than others, and sure, there will be people that are a little bit faster on a bike than others, but that spread will compress, right?
Wait, okay. I think the place where the analogy breaks down is you are judging on the analogy that you use, the speed they're going at. But here, actually, the ultimate goal is not speed. The ultimate goal is
Sure.
revenue. So it's like a different target. So even though the speed is shorter, if I, as a human, can tell it to do more things and the right things and better hypotheses about things, the execution speed being shorter still gets me there like much faster than everybody else that is driving
Correct.
in the wrong direction. So if you drive
Sure,
constantly
sure,
in the
sure.
wrong direction, it doesn't matter that you have a car because you're driving
Yeah,
the
it's
opposite way.
yeah, it's like a video game with fog of war everywhere, and you don't actually know exactly the route. It's you got to go discover it. And some people have more clues than others by their experiences. So I do agree with all of that. I'm just saying, I think both things can be true at the same time, which is like you have the fog of war, and you're either running on your feet or you have a car, and so like
Maybe we
the
instantiate
speed
it.
at
Like I
which you run
think
is
the
going to be
example that he used
yeah.
is amazing. Crypto neobanks, all borrowed parts. Everybody can get a card, grow extremely fast. So what's left? Marketing. Who gets to like certain product feature first? Who gets to network
Yeah,
effects and kind of like can actually
local
find a
cultural
way?
knowledge that allows you to do distribution better, like cultural norms associated with that, so you can build a better product tailored to that audience. So there are definitely points of differentiation. It just is. It's not as much like I'm going to build a better product faster than you anymore, which used to be a very big point of differentiation.
yeah. It's like the original insights in the like sustainability or durability of that insight is the ability to continually have the right insight is the advantage that you
I
have
mean,
to play on.
said another way is the technology mode is disappearing. That's essentially like
Correct.
the clearest instantiation of this. Technology used to be a moat. You needed hundreds of engineers. You needed developers that were iOS, web. You needed architects. You needed database experts, etc. Once you don't need any of that, technology no longer is a differentiator because everybody can get there very quickly, and then the rest is the differentiation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
Agree with that.
guess for what it's worth, my guess is that we're really speedrunning this. Like the reality is like you can still hire 10x engineers that are way more effective for a while. Like I think we're really compressing like what we think cloud code is going to be able to do. And so like if you're a startup company today that are like thinking about this, like I probably wouldn't take what we're talking as gospel. Like you should still find the people that are like amazing and like you should still try to ship your product as fast as possible. Like
Oh, 100%. 100%. This is far away, but it's coming much faster than what we thought. And by the way, look, this is a market right here that we're showing you. So the market clearly like
Yeah,
believes
yeah.
like, look, this is like from baseline is like it's 0.8 at the lowest, so it's 20% less, right? That's what this says. And so 20% is also like not like they're hiring like 1% of before, but there's clearly like a separation from the pack of what we believe are non-value accrual early career engineers into no, I'm going to continue with my mid-career developing and seniors, and I'm going to get those to be more productive instead of hiring new ones. That very much clearly shows, and I think maybe that's the right path. And it's like we're ahead of the market, but it's the decision that people are making.
Dude, the positive spin on this is like if you're graduating college and you're in that early career one bucket, like don't go work at a company, start one and get all the mid-career people to work for you. That's what
right.
you go
And,
do.
and come to us for funding, right? That's it.
Yeah, that's right.
And with that plug for Han Ventures, we will see you guys next week.
Awesome.